Ellis stepped out of the anti-gravity lift and immediately knew he'd fucked up. The ceremonial robes were a mistake. Whoever designed them had never met gravity in a personal way. The fabric billowed around his legs like it had opinions, tugging at his boots as the polished floor glided beneath him. He stumbled once, recovered, then nearly face-planted when the floor subtly tilted, because of course it did. The palace shimmered around him, walls threaded with living crystal filaments that pulsed like a heartbeat. Alien nobles filled the vast chamber, their eyes sharp, curious, judgmental. Floating drones zipped past carrying glowing drinks, emitting polite chimes every time someone reached for the wrong tray. Ellis had memorized etiquette manuals for weeks, and none of them mentioned sentient chandeliers or floors that moved out of spite. Then the women arrived. They didn't enter so much as claim space. Tall, lethal, elegant. Predators who didn't care who watched. Long ears flicked subtly, betraying emotion with surgical precision. One of them, silver-haired with an icy aura that prickled his skin, glanced his way. Ellis felt his stomach drop. That look could have frozen a starship mid-burn. Don't stare. Don't panic. Don't spill your drink. He spilled his drink. The glowing blue liquid arced gracefully through the air and, splashed onto a decorative hologram, which shrieked in offended electronic protest. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ellis bowed instinctively, forgot his robe was wrapped around his knees, and nearly fell again. Gravity isn't my strong suit, he muttered. Demonstrations began. Anti-gravity belts hummed as warriors leapt, spun, and danced through the air. Plasma blades flickered between fingers, slicing holographic beasts apart with elegant brutality. Ellis watched in awe, jaw slack. Then he saw her. She didn't leap. She didn't perform. She stood still, and the room bent around her presence. Silver hair fell like liquid metal. Golden eyes assessed everything. Power radiated from her without effort. When a drone buzzed too close, she rolled her eyes. Human. Relatable. Dangerous. Ellis smiled before he could stop himself. She noticed. By the end of the gala, whispers spread through the palace. Who would the human choose? Tradition demanded caution. Politics demanded safety. Ellis felt neither. Because every instinct he had, bad, reckless, human instincts, kept pulling him toward the one woman no one dared approach. And for the first time, he suspected that choosing her wouldn't just break tradition, it would break the palace itself. Ellis didn't yet know her name, but the moment their eyes met, the selection had already begun. The palace corridors were a maze designed by someone who hated visitors. Floating guides followed Ellis, chirping corrections with polite irritation. Bow at precisely 72 degrees, one reminded him. Not 71. Ellis muttered something about needing a doctorate. Just to walk straight. He tripped anyway. A gravity node caught his boot, launching him forward in a humiliating arc. He would have crashed spectacularly, if not for landing directly in front of a combat chamber. That's where he saw her properly. She moved like restrained violence, controlled, precise, every strike calculated. Anti-gravity fields rippled as she flowed through combat forms, silver hair barely shifting, golden eyes locked in perfect focus. Ellis had the absurd urge to clap. Instead, he tripped over a bench. She stopped, slowly turned. One silver brow lifted. I'm testing gravity, Ellis said weakly, brushing energy dust off his robe. Silence, then the smallest twitch at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile. A warning. Her name was Leora. The day became a blur of accidents and unintended chaos. Ellis wandered into a plasma orb training chamber and sent one spinning wildly. A drone beeped in outrage. Sparks flew. No one died, barely. Leora watched from the doorway, arms crossed. Warm up? He offered. During lunch, he mishandled a glowing delicacy and launched it across the room. Before disaster struck, Leora flicked her hand. A microgravity pulse returned it neatly to his plate. Less enthusiasm, she said flatly. He laughed. She didn't, but didn't look away either. By afternoon, they were orbiting each other. Ellis noticed how she read rooms instantly, how guards shifted when she passed. Leora noticed how the human kept surviving situations he absolutely shouldn't. On a balcony overlooking the gas giant's swirling clouds, Ellis leaned too far forward. Leora grabbed him fast, strong. Humans fall strangely, she said. Occupational hazard. She didn't laugh. But she didn't let go immediately either. By evening, Ellis realized something unsettling. He wasn't afraid of her. He was fascinated. And somehow, she was watching him too. Leora hadn't chosen him, but she was testing him. and in this palace, tests were rarely harmless. The first real trial arrived with alarms and anticipation thick in the air. Holographic beasts materialized, phase-shifting predators. Sonic drones simulated nightmares. Gravity fields warped unpredictably. This wasn't a show. It was a filter. Leora moved first, effortless, lethal, perfect. Then it was Ellis's turn. He pressed the wrong control. A holographic beast launched toward a balcony and slammed into a floating fixture. The fixture survived. The beast dissolved. The crowd gasped, half horror, half disbelief. Effective, Leora said calmly. That was luck, Ellis admitted. Luck can be a strategy. He remembered that. Plasma orbs followed. Ellis swung wildly, ricocheted one into a low-energy field, and accidentally neutralized half the chamber. Elders stared in stunned silence. Leora's smirk appeared. She began adjusting the simulations not to help him but to test him. Walls shifted. Gravity tilted. Traps activated at the worst possible moments. And somehow, he adapted. Improvised, failed, learned, survived. The final challenge was a zero-gravity rescue. Ellis froze, then trusted instinct over training. He launched himself along magnetic rails, collided painfully, grabbed the civilian just as the system declared success. Polite applause. Real shock. Afterward, Leora approached him. You're unpredictable, she said. Possibly dangerous. Ellis grinned. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me today. As they walked away, the palace hummed differently. The trials weren't about strength. They were about who broke expectations without breaking, and Ellis had just proven something terrifying, because the palace had begun to realize that the human wasn't surviving by accident, and that made him far more dangerous than anyone expected. Ellis discovered very quickly that palace etiquette was a blood sport. Breakfast alone involved 6 forks, 3 levitating bowls, and a drink that actively tried to escape his grip. He chose the wrong fork. A nearby noble hissed softly. The fork hissed back. Leora watched in silence, golden eyes unreadable. So, Ellis said, poking a semi-sentient pastry, is everything here judging me or just the cutlery? Both, Leora replied. Progress. They were assigned joint observation duty, purely ceremonial, according to the elders, which meant absolutely nothing was ceremonial. They stood on a high terrace overlooking the inner city, wind tugging at their cloaks. Below them, traffic spiraled in impossible patterns. Ellis leaned against the railing. The railing leaned back. Of course it does, he muttered. Leora caught him again, one hand gripping his arm, the other stabilizing the railing with a gravity pulse. This time she didn't let go. Are humans always this reckless? She asked. Only the charming ones. Her fingers tightened for half a second. That was when it happened. A diplomatic envoy approached, bowing deeply. As tradition demanded, Ellis attempted a formal greeting he'd practiced exactly once. His foot slipped. Momentum carried him forward. He landed squarely against Leora. Not falling, not crashing, sitting on her. The universe went silent. Leora froze. The envoy froze. Every guard within 50 meters locked their weapons. Ellis felt warmth beneath him, solid, powerful, very real. Oh, he said softly. This is but not protocol. Leora blinked once. Her pupils dilated. Several alien species gasped audibly. Ellis scrambled upright, mortified. I swear I didn't mean gravity hates me. Leora stood slowly. And instead of striking him down, she laughed. A real laugh. Sharp, surprised, dangerous. The guards exchanged horrified looks, because whatever had just happened wasn't an insult. It was a challenge response. And by palace law, Leora was now required to decide whether the human was a threat or a claim. The summons arrived before Ellis could finish apologizing. Leora's sisters wanted to meet him. All 3 of them. Together, the chamber they used wasn't meant for diplomacy. It was meant for judgment. 3 thrones carved from different materials, crystal, obsidian, and living metal. Each sister embodied a different kind of danger. The eldest studied him like a blade studies flesh. The second smiled far too easily. The third didn't smile at all. So, the middle sister said, circling him. You sat on our sister. Accidentally, Ellis said. Very accidentally. You triggered a human mating reflex, the eldest added coolly. Ellis blinked. I did what? Leora did not meet his eyes. The sisters moved fast. One grabbed his left arm, Another seized his right. Strength like steel cables locked him in place. Ellis yelped. "This feels aggressive." "It's curiosity," the youngest said. "Relax. Easy for you to say." They examined him. Heart rate, reflexes, neural responses. Ellis cracked jokes through sheer panic. Somehow that only made them more interested. "He's fragile," one said. "He's honest," another countered. "He's alive," the third said thoughtfully. "That's rare." Leora finally stepped forward. "He's mine to judge," she said quietly. The room stilled. The sisters released him instantly. Ellis staggered back, rubbing his arms. "Do all family introductions involve near dissection?" "Only important ones," Leora replied. The sisters exchanged glances. "Be careful, human," the eldest warned. "Our sister does not choose lightly." Ellis met her gaze. "Neither do humans," he said. The sisters smiled. That terrified him more than anything else so far, because now the sisters weren't asking if Ellis belonged. They were asking how dangerous he might become. Rumors spread faster than plasma fire. By evening, everyone knew. The human who survived trials by luck. The one who made Leora laugh. The one who triggered a response no one had seen in centuries. Challenges escalated, not official ones. Personal ones. A noble accidentally shut off gravity in a hallway. Ellis bounced off 3 walls and somehow landed upright. Another tested him with a logic duel. Ellis answered wrong, then pointed out the question's flawed premise. The noble stormed off. Leora watched it all. "You adapt," she said later, as they stood near the palace gardens. Bioluminescent plants curled toward them, sensing motion. "I panic creatively," Ellis replied. She studied him. "Humans weaponize imperfection." "Guess so." A warning alarm echoed. "External threat simulation, live fire conditions." Ellis's heart kicked. This wasn't ceremonial. Leora drew her weapon and handed him a compact shield generator. "Stay behind me." He didn't. When the first drone slipped past her defense line, Ellis reacted without thinking, through the shield. It bounced, ricocheted, overloaded the drone's core. The courtyard went silent. Leora stared at him. "You disobeyed." "Worked, though." She stepped closer, voice low. "That instinct will get you killed. Or keep me alive long enough to matter." For the first time, Leora didn't correct him. The palace systems recalibrated. Threat levels updated. Next to Elas's name, a new classification appeared. Unstable, monitor closely. Leora smiled faintly. Because once the palace labels you unstable, it stops testing you and starts preparing for what you might do next. The first official challenge came at dawn. A formal summons. No disguises. No accidents. Trial of will. Ellis stood in a circular chamber etched with ancient symbols. This wasn't combat. This was worse. The room attacked your mind, fear amplification, memory extraction, instinct suppression. Species had broken here. Proud ones. Leora stood outside the circle. "You can refuse," she said quietly. "No shame." Ellis exhaled. "Humans don't fold well." The chamber activated. Cold flooded his spine. Memories surged, failure, loss, loneliness. His mind screamed for escape. His knees buckled. The system pushed harder. "Submit," Ellis laughed. It came out shaky, broken, but real. "You don't get to decide what scares me." He remembered every time he'd been underestimated. Every time humanity was told stay small. Every time they survived anyway. The pressure spiked. So did his pulse. He stood. The symbols flickered. Observers leaned forward. Leora's breath caught. The system shut down abruptly. Trial terminated. Subject non-compliant. Silence followed. Then a murmur. Ellis wiped sweat from his eyes. Was that a pass? Leora entered the chamber slowly, eyes burning. "No," she said. It was unprecedented. And in the Azuran hierarchy, unprecedented was another word for dangerous. Power attracts attention. The wrong kind. A coalition envoy requested a private meeting species, known for subtle conquests and quiet assassinations. Friendly smiles. Polite tones. Ellis felt it immediately. Leora did too. "Do not provoke them," she warned. The envoy leaned in. "Humans are adaptable, useful. You could thrive under our guidance." Ellis tilted his head. "That sounds like ownership with extra steps." The smile tightened. Pressure filled the room, psychic dominance. Lesser species would kneel. Ellis didn't. He leaned forward instead. "You mistake us," he said calmly. We don't dominate because we're strong. We're strong because we refuse to be dominated. The psychic field cracked. Just a little. Enough. The envoy recoiled, stunned. You're untrained. Yep, Elas agreed. Imagine when we're not. The meeting ended immediately. Later, Leora confronted him on a balcony overlooking the stars. You challenged a predator race without clearance. Elas shrugged. They started it. She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, They will remember you. Good. Her expression shifted, something between concern and pride. Because once predators remember you, they don't come to test, they come to eliminate. The vote was scheduled without announcement. Emergency council. Restricted access. Elas wasn't invited. That worried him. Leora stood before the elders alone. He is unstable, one argued. He disrupts balance, said another. He inspires, said a third quietly. Leora spoke last. Humans do not conquer by force, she said. They endure. They adapt. And when cornered, they surprise. An elder's gaze sharpened. And what do you intend to do with him? Leora didn't hesitate. I will stand with him. Silence. That was not a symbolic statement. That was a bond declaration. Outside, Elas felt it before he heard it, a shift. Like gravity choosing a direction, Leora emerged from the chamber. They've classified you, she said. Elas grimaced. Let me guess, threat? She smiled. Catalyst. Alarms began to ring across the palace. External fleets detected. Unknown configuration. Leora activated her armor. Seems, Elas said, watching the stars change. They didn't like that choice. Leora met his eyes. Neither will what comes next. Because the galaxy was about to learn what happens when humanity stops being observed and starts being backed. The fleet didn't arrive like an invasion. It arrived like a correction. Silent, precise, surgical. Dozens of coalition warships folded out of hyperspace above the Azuran capital. Their hulls black, angular, designed to intimidate before the first shot was fired. Elas stared up at the sky. Those don't look friendly. They aren't, Leora said, voice tight. They're here to remove an anomaly. That's me, isn't it? Yes. No dramatic speeches followed. No warnings. The first strike targeted infrastructure. Power relays, defense grids, communication spires, clean, efficient, terrifying. Azuran forces scrambled, but they were reacting, not planning. Elas clenched his fists. You said humans weren't soldiers here. They aren't, Leora replied. Which is why they didn't plan for you. She activated a secure channel and handed him a wrist module. What's this? Control access to Azuran auxiliary systems. Elas blinked. You're giving me military control? I'm giving you permission, she corrected. What you do with it will be very human. The first enemy drop pods streaked toward the city. Elas exhaled slowly. All right, he muttered. Let's improvise. The systems lit up in response. And improvisation was humanity's deadliest, least predictable weapon. Coalition doctrine was flawless, until it wasn't. Elas didn't deploy defenses traditionally. He rerouted energy, overloaded sensors, turned civilian infrastructure into misdirection grids. Enemy targeting went blind. Azuran commanders shouted in confusion. Elas grinned like a madman. You see, he said over the open channel, your mistake is thinking war is math. He triggered phase inversions, non-lethal, chaotic, brilliant. Enemy formations scattered, colliding, firing at ghosts. A coalition commander broadcast angrily. This is illogical. Welcome to us, Elas replied. Then came the part no one expected. Humans don't just fight machines. They fight fear. Elas opened a wideband transmission, pushing raw footage. Humans enduring disasters. Rebuilding ruins, standing back up when logic said stay down. No threats, no boasting. Just proof. The psychic pressure field collapsed. Coalition morale fractured. Leora watched in awe. You didn't overpower them. Elas nodded. We reminded them what persistence looks like. Enemy ships began retreating. Not defeated. Shaken. But shaken enemies don't forget, they regroup and they escalate. The aftermath was quieter than expected. No celebrations. No monuments. Just silence and recalculations. The council reconvened under emergency protocol. Humanity was no longer listed as emerging. They were reclassified. Adaptive apex species, a conditional ally. Leora stood beside Elas as the declaration echoed through the chamber. You changed everything, she said softly. Elas looked out at the stars. We didn't mean to. That's what scares them. Across the galaxy, intelligence agencies updated threat models. Militaries rewrote doctrines. Ancient species debated something they hadn't in millennia. Caution, humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the oldest. They weren't the most advanced. But they were the only ones who could be pushed, cornered, underestimated, and come back smarter every time. Leora reached for his hand. They'll watch you now. Ella squeezed back. Good, maybe next time they'll ask before deciding. Far away, in the dark between stars, something ancient took notice. Not with fear, with interest. Because humanity hadn't just survived first. Contact, they'd announced themselves, and the universe was finally paying attention.